As the saying goes, records are made to be broken. However, though, could perhaps the Lions set a record that has not been imagined to be possible up until this point? We're going to talk about it in this episode, folks, so stay tuned.
What are we? What makes us what we are and what we're going to be? It's grit. It's what we started with last year, guys. Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and three toes. I will beat your ass.
Can definitely compete with the big dogs.
10-5 end zone touchdown Detroit Lion.
You guys are unbelievable, man. I'm telling you.
We are driven by Detroit.
Hello, all Lions fans, and welcome on back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike, and as always, we're diving on in. So, here's the thing, folks. As we all know, the saying has been around forever and a day. Records are made to be broken. And if you think about it, there have been quite a lot of records that have been made, broken, and remade in the course of the entirety of the NFL history. And some of these records are records that some people thought were never going to be broken. And maybe some of the records that we have currently in NFL will never be broken. Such, like I can think of one record right off the top of my head that probably is never going to be broken is Brett Favre's Iron Man record. Brett Favre is a guy that when he set that record, most people were still wondering how he made it in the first place because the guy went through a lot of injuries that he probably should not have played through. But as you know, as medical technology's gotten the way it is and the way the rules are, I sincerely doubt that we're ever going to have a player that has played as many consecutive games as that record was, that Favre set. Another record that a lot of people thought was never going to be broken, but actually did wind up getting broke, was Dan Marino's passing touchdown record that he set back up in the 1980s. But if you think about it, that record has not only been broken, but it has been rebroken 3 separate times by the same man twice. Obviously, it was broken by Peyton Manning the first time, then it was broke by Tom Brady a few years later, and then Peyton Manning rebroke it, reset the record a couple of years after that, and now it currently stands with Peyton Manning, if I recall correctly, having 55 passing touchdowns in the season. Still a remarkable feat all the same. However, I'm going to just say this right now. Records, breaking them, resetting them, that's an awesome achievement. That is one of those things where it's like, hey, if you got a guy and he's chasing a record, that is something that you absolutely are just like rooting for. And you know what? The Lions have had their fair share of those guys that have, hey, you know what? There's a record out there, they're chasing for it, and there's a potential that they could break it. One such record that I know of was a couple of years ago in the 2022 season. Jared Goff got all the way up at the very end of the season. He hadn't thrown an interception in like 300-plus attempts. After the first, game of the season last year, he didn't throw an interception. Then in the second game, he finally did. He wound up finishing, I think, third on the list all time as far as not having thrown an interception. That was behind the likes of Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers. So it's like, hey, I understand the allure of having a guy that's on your team that's chasing a record. But here's the one thing. It's fun talking about records being broken. But what's even more fun, what's more exciting, more enticing for fans is when you're not breaking records, but rather you're setting records. And what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is becoming the very first of anybody in the entirety of the history of the sport that you're talking about to do something that has never ever been done before. That right there, I think, is more exciting. That right there, I think, is more enticing to fans because it's like, hey, we've now done something that nobody else has done. We were the first ones to do it. That right there kind of like is like wow factor. So let's think about this. Just to kind of, set the mood here, let's go back to last season. Last season, Lions had an astronomical season in many, many ways. I mean, for crying out loud, won our first division title in 30-some years. Won our first playoff game in 30-some years. We won 2 playoff games, actually. The first time that was done in nearly 70 years. And we made it to the NFC Conference Championship game. The first time we've done that in 30-some years. But I'm going to tell you this. while it was enjoyable being able to witness all that, and that was probably one of the greatest, if not the greatest, Lions season for most people that are alive that are Lions fans. There obviously, I would say, are people that are old enough that are fans of mine that will say, hey, I was around when the Lions last won a championship or when they were last considered a really great team. But for most Lions fans, they don't remember that. They weren't alive long enough to remember that. So for 2023, that's the greatest Lions season, at least for most people in living memory. But for me, I'm going to tell you this right now. I think that this upcoming Lions season, I think, has the ability to top that one in a number of ways. And the reason why I'm saying that is because based upon what I saw last season, based upon what we've already seen in this offseason, and based upon where we're going into this next season, I think the Lions, like I said, have the chance to, one, surpass what they did in 2023, not only in terms of their success as far as wins and losses and where they got to in, the conference championship game, but also in what they can do to rewrite the NFL record books. Let's remember, last year, the Lions became only the second team in NFL history to have 4 separate players to have at least 10 scoring touchdowns. And that was these 4 guys. David Montgomery had 10 plus scoring touchdowns. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 10 plus scoring touchdowns. Jahmyr Gibbs, 10 plus scoring touchdowns. And Sam LaPorta, 10 plus scoring touchdowns. Only the second team in NFL history that ever did that. The last time that was accomplished prior to the Lions doing it was 10 years prior to that in 2013 when the Denver Broncos did it. And they actually did it with 5 separate players, not 4. They did it with Demaryius Thomas, Julius Thomas, Eric Decker, Wes Welker, and Knowshon Moreno. So that right there is actually a rather impressive feat to think about it. The Broncos did it the first time and they did it with 5. The Lions were then the next team to do it and they did it with 4. So the Lions actually have more room to actually make and match that output that the Broncos did in 2013. And for me, the Lions, in my opinion, could match this. If I'm being entirely honest here, this isn't me talking about setting a record. This is me talking about matching or breaking a record. Because if you think about it, all 4 of those guys that I already talked about, Montgomery, St. Brown, Gibbs, LaPorta, they're all going to be back with the Lions this year. I personally think, if you realistically think about it, the Lions could match that 5-man total because now I think the Lions have a chance to actually get Jameson Williams into the fold and allow him to potentially make some waves. I'm fully expecting, and a lot of people are fully expecting, for him to have a breakout season this upcoming year. And if he is able to have the kind of expected output that a lot of people are expecting him to have from what we saw of him as an explosive player in college, he could definitely get to that 10 touchdown mark because there will be plenty of opportunities for him to do so. So the Lions could easily match that if they wanted to. The 2013 Broncos having 5 players with 10 plus touchdowns. And they could be, again, the 3rd team in NFL history to do that besides themselves back in 2023. But like I said, I believe the Lions are poised to do something this upcoming season that absolutely no one in the entire history of the NFL has done. Now, I'm going to use a term here that for those that are basketball fans will definitely know, and it's called a double-double. And what I mean by that in terms of the Lions is I believe the Lions will be the first double-double team in the NFL record books. And by that I mean is that I believe the Lions will be the very first team to have 2 1,000-yard rushers and 2 1,000-yard receivers in the exact same season. Now, I know for some people they're going to be like, well, David, hasn't that already been done? No, it has not been done. You can check all the seasons of NFL history, all the seasons of stats. Not a single time has it ever happened where a single offense has had 2 1,000-yard rushers and 2 1,000-yard receivers on the same team. It has never happened. Now, let's just think about that. First and foremost, let's understand why I believe the Lions can do this and why I'm saying that it is exactly possible that they'll do this. Let's first and foremost understand just how damn difficult it has been over the course of the NFL history books to just get 2 1,000-yard rushers on the same damn team. It's only happened 7 times in NFL history. Think about that. 7 times. And remember, the NFL way back in the beginning actually was a game that was all about running the ball to death. There was a reason why they called it 3 yards in a cloud of dust. Think about that. But only 7 times. in NFL history has there been a time where two running backs or two players on the same team have gotten 1,000 yards together in the same season? That's pretty, that's a pretty damn important accomplishment if it's only happened 7 times. Because the NFL's been around forever, like forever and a day almost. So think about it. Last year, the Lions actually almost made it 8 teams. Because last year, David Montgomery got over 1,000 yards. Jahmyr Gibbs was this freaking close. He was 55 yards short of making it to 1,000 yards. Because at the very end of the season, it was like, hey, both these guys, they're in the 900s, they're almost there. And Montgomery cracked 1,000, but Gibbs wasn't able to. He came up 55 yards short. That's not necessarily saying that he couldn't do it, or you know what? Sometimes that's just the way the ball rolls. Sometimes it just doesn't happen. But the whole point of the matter is that the Lions almost did it last year. And I personally expect that they're going to be able to do it this year, because you have to understand something here. David Montgomery, if I recall correctly, he only played in 14 games this year, 3 of which he was out with injury. And if you take a look at Jahmyr Gibbs, the first couple of games of the season, he wasn't really used all that much. He didn't really start getting a whole lot of reps until about the midway part of the season when, Montgomery did go out with injury. But once we actually started figuring out how to use him, that was when his carries, that's when his touches really started to go up. So I expect that now both of those guys, knowing what to expect out of the offense and what the offense to expect out of them, they should easily together both get 1,000 yards in my opinion, especially considering the fact of how little we used Gibbs at the beginning last year and the fact that Montgomery was injured for 3 games last year. But what about 1,000-yard receivers? Honestly, this one is not something that is that hard to do. Because we've had multiple situations of where there's been 1,000-yard duos on a same team. That's not hard to do, especially in this pass-happy league that the NFL currently is right now. But the reason why I'm saying this double-double theory is impressive is because even though you can take a look at a whole bunch of teams that have had 2 wide receivers or players at the same time that have had 1,000 yards receiving at the same time, that's why I'm saying it's still impressive, because you've never had a team that's had 2,000-yard receivers along with 2 1,000-yard rushers. And the reason why that is an impressive feat is because not only do you have to have the explosiveness to have one or the other, but to have both in the same time means you have to have that explosiveness matched with a balanced offense, which is something that is very, very hard to do. It's very rare to have. Hence the reason why it's never been done before. You usually have one or the other, but to have both in the same season never happened before. So that's why I think the Lions can do it. Now, how do I think this will be done? Well, let's first and foremost put this into perspective. Last year, the Lions almost did it anyway. Think about this. The Lions last year almost became that first team that had that double-double concept that I'm talking about. And I'm going to show you what I mean by this. First and foremost, the rushers, like I said, it's very easy to figure out who'd be the 2 1,000-yard rushers. It'd be Gibbs and it would be Montgomery, because Gibbs almost did it last year with 1,000 yards. Montgomery did do it with 1,000 yards, like I just said, not that more than a minute or 2 ago. So that's something that I don't expect is going to change. That is something I expect that they will easily be able to crack this year. Now, the receivers, again, very, very easy in my opinion. That's St. Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and tight end Sam LaPorta. Now, some may say, well, David, didn't you just say that you expect, Jameson Williams to have a big season, for him to have a breakout season? I do expect him to have a breakout year. But here's what I'm going to say. For rather the point of this conversation, I don't think that to expect Jameson Williams to have 10-plus touchdowns and to also have 1,000 yards in his first season, I think that's a little crazy for his first year as a full-time starter. I know that for some people they're going to say, no, that's not that crazy, especially since this is his 3rd year playing. We should expect him to have something like that. But for me, it's like, okay, let's take a look at last year. Last year, he was suspended for 4 games, and he was able to play the majority of them. I think he lost like 2 games due to injury, because I know he got injured at the very end of the year with the Dallas game or something like that. But even still, he only had like 300-plus some yards receiving, and I think he only had 2 receiving touchdowns and 1 rushing touchdown. That would mean he would have to triple his output in both yards and touchdowns just to get that 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns. I can see him doing one or the other, but I don't see him doing both. But LaPorta, on the other hand, I definitely can see doing this because, again, LaPorta already pretty much came damn near close last year doing it. Think about it. Like I said, with JMO, I can't really make an objective judgment about what we're going to expect from him because we haven't seen him as a full-time starter yet. But I do expect that he's going to be able to double his production. But with Sam LaPorta last year, Sam LaPorta literally showed that he's well up to the task. As a rookie, he showed that. Think about it. St. Brown and Sam LaPorta right now are easily the two guys on that offense that have the most chemistry, the most trust with quarterback Jared Goff. Last year, Amon-Ra St. Brown, as we already know, easily eclipsed the 1,000-yard barrier. He actually got to 1,500 yards. LaPorta, as a rookie tight end, got to 889 yards. So he didn't get to 1,000. But you want to know what he did do? He still broke the Lions' rookie receiving yards record. Still broke that. So think about it. In his first year as a starter, as a rookie, he breaks the Lions' rookie receiving yards mark, but he was only 111 yards short of eclipsing the 1,000-yard mark as a tight end, as a rookie. That's pretty damn impressive if I do say so myself. Now, why I think that Sam LaPorta has a chance to break that 111-yard difference to get to that 1,000-yard mark is because, let's understand something here. Josh Reynolds is not going to be with the team anymore. He left this offseason to go play with the Denver Broncos. Well, that production that Josh Reynolds has is going to get eaten up by the guys that are still here. And think about it. Josh Reynolds had freaking 600 yards receiving with the Lions last year. Well, think about it. With the guys that we still have on the roster, which is JMO, LaPorta, Donovan Peoples-Jones, and Raymond, I just said, let's just think about this here. Let's take a look at the difference between, what would that breakup be if you divided what, Josh Reynolds' receiving yard total was by 4. If you do that math, what it would come out to is that each wide receiver, if they were to break it up evenly, which was Josh Reynolds' receiving yards output, you divide it by 4, you would get about 152 yards between all 4 guys. Sam LaPorta only needs 111. So if Sam LaPorta takes that average and break up between Josh Reynolds, between all 4 of the guys I'm talking about, he could easily break the 1,000-yard barrier. So then at that point, I've established how I think the Lions are going to do it and who I think the Lions are going to do it with. Because those guys that I'm talking about, St. Brown, LaPorta, Gibbs, Montgomery, like I said, they almost did it last year. And for some of those guys, particularly for Gibbs and for Montgomery, they didn't play the full season or didn't get the full ability to do it the whole season. Now, the final reason I believe the Lions are going to be able to pull off this magnificent achievement, something like I said that has never been done in NFL history, is because of the guys that are going to be running and managing the offense, which is Jared Goff and Ben Johnson. Again, I have sung the praises of both of these guys quite a lot because if you think about it, Jared Goff and Ben Johnson, they have developed an offense that has proven to be both explosive and yet balanced at the same time, which if you're going to try and accomplish a feat like this, it has to have that quality about itself. It has to be balanced but yet explosive in both categories, running and passing the ball. And the relationship that Goff and Ben Johnson share, when paired with the rest of the talent that's on this offense, makes this historic possible achievement become actually more of a very likely probability. Like I said, we almost did it last year. Think about it. Go back to 2023 and take a look at Jared Goff's stats. Again, 7th in terms of completion percentage. You're definitely going to need to have a high completion percentage in order to pull this off. 2nd in passing yards. Definitely going to have a high output in passing yards. 4th in passing touchdowns. Definitely going to have that too. Passer rating, QBR, just inside and just outside of top 10. So again, you're talking about a quarterback that was able to balance the offense and be extremely efficient. He was the 6th best passer according to PFF last year in terms of their passing grades. He was the 7th best passer according to DVOA last year. So you're talking about a quarterback that's very efficient and yet very explosive with his output. Then you take a look at the Lions' offensive line. The guys that nobody really talks about nearly as much, but without them, this offense don't work for crap. Last year, according to ESPN Analytics, the Lions' offensive line was ranked 13th in both in pass win and run block win rate. So in terms of being able to win with pass blocking and run blocking, the Lions were in the top half of the league, according to ESPN Analytics. If you go to PFF, on the other hand, they were ranked 12th in pass blocking and 8th in run blocking. So again, this is a Lions offensive line that even last year, even though it was a great unit, still had room to improve. And I think the reason they're going to improve this year is because they replaced Jonah Jackson with Kevin Zeitler. So for me, it's like, okay, when I take a look at all this information that I've put together, You've improved the offensive line by getting a better guard in Zeitler over Jackson. You've got a top 10, almost top 5 quarterback in Jared Goff, who has managed this offense beautifully the last couple of years with Ben Johnson at the helm for the same last couple of years. You have a top 15 running back duo in Gibbs and Montgomery. You've got a top 3 tight end in Sam LaPorta with a top 10 wide receiver in freaking Amon-Ra St. Brown, and you've got other guys on that receiving core with Jamu, who I expect to take a huge leap this year, and other good backup pieces, good role pieces in DPJ and Raymond, pardon me, I couldn't remember his name for a minute. The whole point is you have all the pieces there to make this possibility a reality. And the reason why I still say it's going to happen is because the Lions almost did it last year, folks. I fully expect they'll be able to do it this year. And to become the very first team in NFL history to ever to do it, that's saying something. If you can become the very first team to ever do something that has never been done before, that right there sets you up in an elite class, because it's like, hey, they were the first to ever do it. And just think about this, folks. Think about this. To break that record and then also potentially make a Super Bowl trip and win a Super Bowl in the same season, think about how epic, think about how magical, think about just how out of this world kind of a season that would be for the Lions. I know we're talking about primarily offense. I know the defense has to do its part. But for an offense to be that special, yeah, I can imagine how really impressive a season that could be for the Lions. I really, really, truly could. But anyway, folks, I decided to put this episode together because I was really, really having a fun time with this concept. Really went into the research, really decided to take a look at the stats and the numbers. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it as well as I did, or as much as I did. Pardon me, I definitely enjoyed it. But having said that, I'm going to end the episode and say thank you all for watching another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, I highly encourage y'all to do one of these 3 things: like, comment, and subscribe. If you've subscribed in the past, forgot to do so at the time, or you just subscribed and I had a chance to do so, again, please subscribe. It always helps out the channel. I'm always thankful for every subscription I can get. But I also encourage y'all, please, make sure you hit that bell notification icon next to the subscribe button, so that way you guys never miss any more content that I push out. Also encourage y'all to share the content with your Lions friends and family members. Share it here on YouTube, share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook, share it anywhere and everywhere you can with everybody and anybody that you can. The more you can share it, the greater the channel grows and spreads. And with that being said, to everybody, I hope y'all are having a blessed day. I hope y'all are doing well. I hope y'all got something that makes you happy, makes you smile. I hope y'all enjoyed the content. And with that being said, God bless. And until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the very next episode.